Our next guest knows quite a bit about helping children become strong readers. Kathy Emerick is a lifelong educator and advocate for increasing student access to learning opportunities. Over the course of her career, Kathy has been a third-grade teacher, principal at Beverly Park Elementary in the Highline School District, the director of curriculum and instruction in the Highline School District, and is currently serving as the executive director of school and leadership success in the Kent School District. It's my pleasure to welcome Kathy Emerick to the stage.
Good afternoon. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here today to celebrate the incredible work of Page Ahead. I've had the privilege of being connected to this fantastic organization for about 13 years, and it's just a joy to continue championing the work and the impact that they have on our youngest learners. So we have all heard the cliches. Books open doors, books fuel the imagination, books are powerful. One book can change a life. And I'm here to tell you today that as a mom and an educator of almost 30 years, all of those are absolutely true. Books grow humans. They build curiosity, wonder, empathy, and confidence. They ignite possibility, and I've seen it all firsthand. As a third-grade teacher, I watched my students come back from the library with books that I knew were just a little too challenging for them. But they were bound and determined to get through that book. They knew the power of tackling that book, even if they had to renew it from the library a couple of times before they finished it. They saw themselves as readers. The power in that book selection, again, seeing themselves as readers, having access to those magical books that push them to grow and learn. As a mom, I watched my daughter, who struggled to learn to read. She fell in love with books when my sister accidentally bought the Wings of Fire series for my nephew, who said, "No, those aren't for me," and then gave them to her. Something clicked. She could not put them down, and she went from being a reluctant leader to having parents who had to say those dreaded words of, "Stop reading, go to bed," right? Just like the homework that the governor mentioned. She's still hoping that the next book is going to come out, by the way. But that's the magic of books. And as the governor mentioned, here's the hard truth. Not all children get this opportunity. Access to books shouldn't be a luxury, but we know for many families, it is. Not every child has hundreds of books at home or a full bookshelf. Not every home includes that regular trip to the library that many of us and the governor spoke about. Not every child has an aunt who accidentally orders the wrong books that you get to inherit. But that's where Page Ahead steps in, powerfully and purposefully. When we talk about equity, we really mean access and opportunity for all children. And Page Ahead is filling that opportunity gap. When I was first introduced to Page Ahead, I was the principal of Beverly Park Elementary School in the Highline School District, and our librarian came to me with a really simple question after she had heard about Book Up Summer, saying, "How can we make this happen for our kids?" A little bit about Book Up Summer. It creates this wonderful book fair experience for our kids where they get to choose 12 free books. No cost to them, no cost to the families. They get to read them over the summer and then keep them forever. So my answer was even simpler. How can we not? A school that served more than 80% of our families who qualified for free and reduced lunch. families who had to make tough decisions about where their dollars go. How could we not afford to do that? Watching our kindergartners that spring pick out their books, oh my goodness, their eyes wide, their hearts full, their hands literally full of books. That joy is something I will never forget. And I get to see that joy and wonder every year now, 12 books at a time. So Page Ahead provides those 12 high-quality, age-appropriate books to children who might not otherwise have them. It builds home libraries, and more importantly, it builds their identity. It tells kids, you are a reader. Page Ahead is closing that gap and opportunity for so many children. Today's theme is one book at a time, but really, Page Ahead, they play big, and they're pursuing this mission 12 books at a time. It's amazing. Later in my career, I was the director of curriculum instruction, and I had the privilege of bringing Page Ahead, not just from one school, but to many schools in the Highline School District. Thousands of more children building their reading identity, 12 books at a time. After working closely with Page Ahead for years, we launched the Story Leaders program that Arden mentioned earlier that provided opportunities not just for children to access more books, but really brought the preschool teachers and the families together to help students build vocabulary and language skills, build those pre-literacy skills that we know will support our students while also building their home libraries. Today, in my current role in the Kent School District, I've supported 6 new schools in joining the Page Ahead family. Hundreds of more kids will be holding books that are theirs to keep forever, 12 books at a time. So why does this matter? Because the research is clear. Literacy expert Richard Allington, who Page Ahead founded a lot of their work on, found that early access to books, called print exposure, is one of the strongest predictors reading success, not just for school, but for your whole life. His compilation of research indicates that researchers found differences in early reading proficiency predicted differences in how much children would read, which predicted 10 years later who would be considered a quote-unquote good reader and who wouldn't. In our educational system, we often rely on test scores to determine who's a good reader, but let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever noticed that the more you know about a topic, the easier it is to understand that topic? So let's try something. It's not a big test, I promise. Think for a moment about a topic that you maybe love. It's spring, so maybe it's baseball or gardening. Maybe you love to cook. Maybe your big interest is travel. Or maybe it's your favorite Netflix series. Have you got it? Give me a thumbs up when you got a topic in your head. Okay. Now imagine that you're reading an article and you're going to take a test on that. Probably pretty easy, right? You already know the context, the lingo. You're familiar with acronyms like ERA or RBI if you're thinking baseball. You could probably pick out the word geranium if you were reading about plants. Probably a pretty easy test. Now let's switch it up a little bit. Imagine that same reading test, but let's pretend it was on microbiology. Anybody study microbiology in college? Maybe you need to pick something harder, maybe quantum physics or doll restoration, something unfamiliar. Do you know words like pathogenicity? That means the ability for a microorganism to cause a disease. So quick show of hands, how many people would prefer to take the test on the first topic? Agree. So this little mental experiment just highlights the core truth about reading. Comprehension isn't just about decoding words. It's about understanding the world around you. And research by Richard Allington shows us that vocabulary, context, and knowledge make a huge difference in our reading success. And you know what builds all of that? Independent reading. Kids who see themselves as readers read more. And when they read, they build their vocabulary and learn about the world around them, and ultimately become better readers regardless of the topic. A child who has read books about animals, for example, is going to be more likely to understand ecosystems in their science class. A child who has read stories of different cultures around the world is better apt to engage in world history and social studies. A child who reads about characters navigating big emotions, they're building emotional intelligence. That's the quiet power of books, shaping how the child sees the world and how they're making sense of the world around them. So back to Allington's research on being a good reader. We know children who read more build stronger vocabularies, have a deeper understanding of the world, and they're building that background knowledge that gives them the scaffolding to understand new and difficult concepts. It gives them that framework to be able to say, hey, I've heard of something like this before. I can get this. I can tackle that reading. It transforms unfamiliar topics into something they can approach with confidence. Page Ahead helps kids become readers. They build background knowledge, confidence, and a love for reading. That's the foundation for future success, and all children should have access and opportunity to books. 1 book at a time or 12 books at a time. Page Ahead is closing the access gap. They've already distributed over 4.5 million books. And every single one of those books, sorry, I get so excited about reading, has the potential to be life-changing. They continue to do this work because they can see the impact they're having on the world, and they can continue this work because of people like you, people who value literacy, value our children, and are supporting the work of Page Ahead. So I invite you today to be a part of this powerful work. If you've ever seen that spark in a child's eye when they discover a story that speaks to them, or learn a new concept, or tell a reluctant reader that they have to stop reading because you got to get some sleep or do some homework, if you've seen that, then you know what's at stake. And I've seen the impact of Page Ahead, not just in our test scores, but with our children and our family, and they're building their reader identities. And I'm so lucky that I get to continue working with this fabulous organization every year. So every dollar that you give helps get books into the hands of kids who may not have them. Help Page Ahead close this access gap, increase equity for our children, and let's be a supporter of Page Ahead. Together we can build readers, build thinkers, and build leaders, 1 book at a time or 12 books at a time. Thank you.